If you pre-order video games in 2020, you really need to stop. Because people like you are part of the problem in the video game industry. When you pre-order a game, you're enabling these developers and publishers to release a game in a broken and unfinished state, because now when you're pre-ordering a game, they have no incentive to make the game as polished and complete and finished as possible because you already paid them months in advance. Like, I've even seen people pre-ordering a game a year before it's even released. A year. So, if you already paid the full $60 months before the game is scheduled for release, and these publishers see that they're already making millions upon millions of dollars before the game even launches, what incentive do they have to make the game as good as it could possibly be if you already paid them? Sure, there are a lot of game sales that come from people buying the game after launch day, but if a bulk of it comes from people buying the game before it's even released, then it allows these developers and publishers to get a little lazy, to cut a few corners, to not make sure that the game is as great as it could possibly be, because a good chunk of their revenue came from people buying the game before it even came out. It just makes no sense to me. Why do so many people do this? Why do people pre-order games in 2020? And I say 2020 because pre-orders used to have a practical use. Back when all the big games had physical releases only and didn't even come out on digital. And the reason why we even got pre-orders in the first place, and why you have pre-orders with anything, including a cell phone, the newest iPhone, people get pre-orders for that. People pre-order the PlayStation 5. The reason why you have pre-orders for physical items is to make sure that you get your copy as early as possible, because in a lot of cases, if it's a hot item like the PS4, remember back in the day, if you didn't pre-order the PS4, you couldn't get it for months. Like, it was just flying off the shelves, and it was really hard to get your hands on one. So, and that was also the case when it came to big AAA releases, that if it was a really popular game, a lot of stores, they just couldn't keep up with the demand, and, there's a really good chance that if you didn't pre-order the game, you wouldn't be able to get your hands on a copy for weeks. So, I understand why people pre-order games back in the day, and I certainly pre-ordered a lot of games back in the PS2, PS3 era, but now that we're in the digital age where you can literally download any game you want to play, why are pre-orders still a thing? It has no practical use anymore. Why do you need to reserve a copy for a digital game? Obviously, when a game is listed on the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Store or Steam, there is no limit to how many copies there are out there because it's digital, right? Like a physical copy, there are only a certain amount of discs that are manufactured, but you don't have that problem with digital media. No matter how high or low demand is, the supply is infinite. So then how the hell is pre-ordering still a thing now that physical media is all but obsolete and will probably completely disappear within the next few years? I know a big incentive to make people pre-order games despite them being completely obsolete and have no purpose. They offer pre-order bonuses. If you pre-order the game by this date, you will get exclusive in-game items that you can't get if you don't pre-order the game. So people rush to pre-order because, well, I gotta get that pre-order bonus, right? But I don't even understand that, because you're still paying for a game that you don't know whether or not it's good. So even if you get all this extra shit by pre-ordering the game, what if it turns out to be shit? What if the game turns out to be fucking awful? Was it worth getting all that bonus pre-order content for a game that you fucking hate? And that's the thing I really don't understand. You have all these people that bitch and complain about how terrible this game is, how much of a waste of money it is, but that's kind of what you deserve if you decide to pay full price for a game that you know nothing about. Like, there's no gameplay, there's nothing. You just decide to pre-order a game without knowing if it's good or bad. And then you have the people that take it a step further by pre-ordering the $90 edition, the $100 edition. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Do you not see the problem here? Not only are you just pissing money away for a game that you don't know anything about, but you people need to realize you're part of the reason why the game is not good in the first place. Because it's like I said earlier, if they already have your money, what incentive do they have to make the game good? And sure, you have a lot of cases of games that were terrible at first, but grew into amazing games, like Battlefield 4. Remember that game? It was a train wreck of a launch. It was pretty much broken. But after all the updates, it's probably the best game in the entire Battlefield franchise. But if anything, this actually helps illustrate my point, because if developers and publishers are going to wait months, sometimes years, to finish a game after it's launched, then you can wait to buy it. Because in this day and age, I can only think of a couple of examples of a game that came out on launch day and didn't have a bunch of game-breaking bugs or didn't have a lot of missing content. Like, there are very few games that the game is actually finished when the game is launched. Like, isn't that something that you should just come to expect? But most games, they don't do that. Like, you have to wait months before the game is fully finished and all the bugs are ironed out. And even have some games that are never fixed. Like Battlefield 5, they cut support for it like a month ago, and it's still the worst Battlefield game ever made. But despite that, DICE said, fuck it, we're gonna ban this game and we're just gonna make a new one. Like, who would want to buy the new game after that train wreck of a release? But there are enough people out there that are just gonna buy the game no matter what because it says EA on it, because it says DICE. Oh, DICE is a great developer. Just because the last game was bad, I'm sure they'll fix it this time. Why do so many people think that way? Why is there so much trust for these developers and publishers that have let you down so many times in the past, even the ones that have had a great reputation for years? Naughty Dog? Weren't they considered one of the best video game developers in the entire industry, never letting us down? Uncharted 1, 2, 3, 4 were all amazing. The Last of Us 1, Jak and Daxter. But then we got The Last of Us Part 2, which is arguably the worst game that Naughty Dog has ever made. And I bring this up specifically because the big argument you hear in favor of pre-ordering is, well, like, okay, I don't pre-order most games, this is what I hear, but I'll pre-order games from developers that I know and trust, like CD Projekt Red. Because I love The Witcher, and I know I'll also love Cyberpunk. And there's a chance that you'll also like Cyberpunk because you like The Witcher, but that's one thing also, like, just because the same developers made a game you love doesn't mean another game that they made you're gonna like just as much. But never mind that, who's to say that CD Projekt Red won't also become the next Naughty Dog, the next Bethesda, the next Rockstar, because those are 3 development studios that we never thought would even be in the conversation among the most hated game developers. They had a pretty stellar reputation for the past 20 plus years, but now most of that is gone. With the release of Fallout 76, all the microtransactions that have come with it, all the constant re-releases of the Elder Scrolls and Fallout and just trying to cash in on old games, Rockstar's doing the same exact thing, re-releasing, not just re-releasing GTA 5, but re-releasing the re-release. And it looks like they'll be charging $70 for a 7-year-old game. But I bet you a lot of people are still going to buy it. A lot of people are even going to pre-order the game on PS5, GTA 5 on PlayStation 5. Where the hell is GTA 6? I'll tell you where. It's not even being made because they're making so much money off of GTA 5. I mean, I guess eventually they'll make GTA 6, but they're going to keep cashing in on GTA 5 for the next few years at least. And that's insane. But to all the people that have pre-ordered Fallout 76, Last of Us Part 2, I hope you guys learned your lesson. Because it doesn't matter who makes the game, you still shouldn't pre-order a game no matter what, because it's just a bad idea. You're giving them the money before they even come out with the game. And even The Last of Us 2, it's not even a broken mess. There's no game-breaking bugs, just the story is shit. That's another thing. Just because the sequel to a game you like doesn't mean that it's gonna hold up to its predecessor. It doesn't matter who makes a game, what the circumstances are. Pre-ordering games is always a bad idea. The last game I pre-ordered was No Man's Sky, and I learned my lesson from that, because even though it became an amazing game after, 2 or 3 years, I still feel like I got robbed of that $60, because when I buy a game when it comes out, I expect it to be finished, because if you release a game, that implies that you're selling a finished product, but in most cases, that's just not true. But I learned my lesson never to pre-order a game ever again, because it ruins video games. Everyone needs to stop pre-ordering games.